The film opens with the introduction of a debt collector named Beck, who is tasked by his boss to retrieve a debt from a client that night. The client is Brian, an American football player. Since Beck enjoys watching American football games, he approaches the task in the most polite and non-confrontational manner possible. Brian had placed a bet the previous week, but has yet to pay the agreed-upon sum of $50,000. Despite Beck's friendly approach, he is met with hostility as Brian is in the middle of a party with his teammates, who are much larger and stronger than Beck. Beck decides to leave, not out of fear of Brian's friends, but because he doesn't want to cause a scene that could potentially jeopardize the big game happening the following week. However, Beck's boss is adamant that the debt must be collected that very night. Reluctantly, Beck returns to confront Brian, this time prepared to use force if necessary. Not only is Beck physically strong, but he is also highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat. Beck quickly subdues Brian's friends, despite their larger size, which causes Brian to panic. As his friends lie defeated, Brian attempts to flee, but Beck manages to catch him. After taking Brian's diamond ring as collateral, Beck leaves the club, ready to report back to his boss. Suddenly, Beck is ambushed and shot with rubber bullets, causing him to lose consciousness. When he regains consciousness, he realizes that the attack was orchestrated by none other than his own boss. It turns out his boss had sabotaged the mission in order to manipulate Beck once more. Beck is being forced to continue working as a debt collector as part of an arrangement to atone for past mistakes and regain ownership of his restaurant. That night was supposed to be his final mission, but a mafia boss named Billy requires Beck's assistance for one more job. This time, the task is more complicated. Beck is asked to retrieve Billy's son, who is currently in the Amazon. If Beck succeeds in bringing back Billy's son, not only will he regain ownership of his restaurant, but he will also be paid $4 million. However, Beck isn't particularly motivated by the money, but agrees reluctantly and sets off for the Amazon. To get to the location, Beck must take a small plane, but the situation becomes more complicated when he discovers that the landing strip is a cattle ranch with no proper airport. Soon after, Billy's son Travis is introduced. Despite his scruffy appearance, Travis was once a promising doctoral candidate at Stanford University. Instead of pursuing his academic career, he chose to venture into the Amazon rainforest in search of a legendary treasure. Early in the morning, Travis is seen asking for assistance from a local bar owner named Mariana, explaining that he is close to discovering the treasure, but needs a boat to reach it. Not long after, Beck arrives in the town where Travis is located. Instead of causing trouble, Beck decides to meet the local ruler, Hatcher, who turns out to be a diamond mining businessman. Hatcher controls nearly all of the town's residents, exploiting them by paying very little, while putting their lives at risk in dangerous working conditions. The residents, however, are too afraid to oppose him, as Hatcher has a team of heavily armed guards. Beck explains to Hatcher that he is there to take Travis back home, but Hatcher demands a payment of $10,000 in exchange. Not wanting any complications, Beck agrees and immediately pays the fee. Without wasting any time, Beck heads to the bar where Travis is located. Upon meeting him, Beck offers Travis a simple choice: come home willingly or be forced to. Naturally, a panicked Travis tries to resist, but this presents no challenge for Beck. Just as they are about to leave, Hatcher reappears, arrogantly announcing that he wants to cancel their previous agreement. Hatcher reveals that Travis knows the location of the legendary treasure, and therefore he must stay in town until the treasure is found. At this point, Beck's patience is tested as Hatcher grows more arrogant, refusing to return the $10,000 Beck had paid. With no other option, Beck decides to take down all of Hatcher's men. However, Hatcher remains defiant and sends his best enforcers to capture Beck. Seeing this, Beck decides it's better to flee with Travis, who is the main objective of his mission. On the run, Travis won't stop talking, offering Beck double the payment if he lets him go, convinced he's close to discovering the legendary treasure. But Beck rejects his offers, one after another. Frustrated, Travis suddenly rebels, causing their vehicle to veer off a cliff. In the crash, Beck is seriously injured, hitting several trees on the way down. Taking advantage of the situation, Travis searches Beck's pockets, looking for the handcuff keys. However, his escape doesn't go as smoothly as planned because Beck quickly recovers and reappears. Despite witnessing Beck's impressive fighting skills earlier, Travis remains undeterred and decides to challenge him again. Meanwhile, Hatcher and his men arrive at the cliff's edge, realizing that both Travis and Beck have fallen into the ravine. Though entering the forest is dangerous, Hatcher is determined to find them. As long as their deaths aren't confirmed, the chase will continue. As they move deeper into the jungle, Travis starts to get curious about Beck. He wonders why Beck, a debt collector, came to the Amazon without any weapons. Beck explains that he has a personal rule. Every time he holds a weapon, someone gets hurt, which is why he prefers to fight with his bare hands. After walking for 5 hours, Travis suddenly needs to relieve himself and asks Beck to unzip his pants, as his hands are still cuffed. However, this is a ruse, and Travis uses the moment to activate a trap hidden near a tree, causing Beck to be suspended upside down by a rope. As Beck dangles, the handcuffed keys and his valuables fall from his pockets, allowing Travis to grab the keys and prepare to escape. Before leaving, Travis mocks Beck for getting caught in such a simple trap, but karma quickly strikes as Travis falls into the same trap himself. Now both men are stuck in the same predicament, dangling side by side. With rebel troops closing in on their location, Beck suggests that they work together to find a way out before they are captured. The situation takes a turn for the worse when a group of forest monkeys suddenly appears. Travis quickly explains that these monkeys are known for their viciousness, and their bites can cause infections that may lead to death. Soon after, both Travis and Beck are captured by rebel troops. Fortunately, Travis is able to communicate in the local language and tries to explain their presence in the forbidden area. However, instead of de-escalating the situation, Travis uses the opportunity to tell the rebels that Beck is one of Hatcher's men. This infuriates the rebel troops, and they prepare to shoot Beck. Luckily, the rebel leader, Mano, decides to challenge Beck to a hand-to-hand fight instead. Despite Beck's repeated attempts to explain that he doesn't want to fight, Mano launches his attack. Mano turns out to be a formidable fighter, and Beck takes a serious beating. But when Beck's patience finally runs out, he fights back with full force, thoroughly defeating Mano and his men. During the brawl, Mariana suddenly appears, and to Beck's surprise, Mano and the rebels show her immense respect, revealing that she is actually the true leader of the rebel forces. Though this revelation is unexpected, it spares Beck and Travis's lives. Later, as they sit by the campfire for dinner, Mariana explains that the rebel group she leads consists of villagers who can no longer tolerate Hatcher's tyranny. Their fields were forcibly taken to be turned into mines, and their agricultural produce now lines only Hatcher's pockets. During this conversation, Mano apologizes to Beck for his earlier behavior and gives him a necklace. Unfortunately, their peace is short-lived. Hatcher's troops discover their location, and in the ensuing chaos, most of Mariana's group is slaughtered. Only Mariana, Beck, and Travis manage to escape, fleeing down the river in a boat. After traveling through the night, Mariana suddenly pressures Travis into helping her locate the legendary treasure, as it is the villagers' only hope for reclaiming their land and leading decent lives. Beck, initially reluctant, agrees with Mariana's plan, but under the condition that once they find the treasure, she must help them escape the forest. With no other choice, Travis leads the group toward the treasure's location. During their journey, it is revealed that Beck grew up in a gangster environment. From a young age, he spent his time fighting and eventually ended up working for Billy. Beck's ultimate goal is to complete these missions so he can free himself from his past and start a new life as a restaurant owner. After walking for several hours, they finally arrive at a waterfall. Based on his research, Travis is confident that the treasure is hidden behind it. Following his instructions, Beck and Mariana discover a cave behind the waterfall. Travis attempts to light a fire for visibility, but the cave is filled with methane gas, causing an explosion. Luckily, the fire was lit early enough that the explosion does not injure them, allowing them to continue their search for the treasure. At the same time, the challenges to retrieve the treasure are far from over. The group must navigate through a series of wooden pillars, which, if disturbed even slightly, would trigger a rockfall from above. Luckily, Travis cleverly deduces that there is a clue hidden beneath the floor. By following the clue, they should be able to reach the next point. However, proving this theory requires Travis to risk his life. In the end, the trio successfully exits the cave unharmed. To celebrate their success, Mariana invites them to dine on Kano's fruit that evening. The treasure they found is incredibly valuable. worth tens of billions due to its connection to an ancient civilization. Mariana intends to use the proceeds from the treasure sale to rebuild the village, allowing the villagers to return to farming and escape the oppressive conditions in Hatcher's mines. Unfortunately, midway back to the village, Beck and Travis begin to feel strange sensations in their bodies. It turns out that the Kano's fruit Mariana fed them is highly poisonous. Mariana had poisoned them because she didn't want to share 50% of the treasure's profits with Travis. Despite this betrayal, Mariana keeps her word to Beck and shows them the way out of the forest before leaving. 5 hours later, the paralyzing effects of the Kano's fruit begin to wear off. As Beck regains control of his body, the forest monkeys reappear. Traumatized by the earlier encounter, Beck tries to move but still feels partially paralyzed, almost as if he's had a stroke. Eventually, the paralysis fully subsides, and Beck and Travis make their way to the airstrip, where they reunite with their pilot, Declan. Worried about Hatcher's retaliation, Beck urges Declan to prepare the plane for immediate takeoff. However, Declan reveals that Hatcher won't be coming after them, as he found the legendary treasure the previous night. During their escape, Mariana had been captured by Hatcher's troops. Knowing that both Mariana's life and the lives of the villagers are now in danger, Beck feels morally obligated to return to the town, even though Mariana had betrayed them the night before. Beck realizes that her actions were driven by her desire to protect her people. Determined to help, Beck decides to head back to town, leaving Travis behind with Declan. But Travis insists that Beck won't be able to defeat Hatcher without his help. Meanwhile, Mariana is seen being detained and interrogated by Hatcher. In the middle of their conversation, one of Hatcher's subordinates reports that Beck has launched an attack on Outpost 1. Without hesitation, Beck sends a threatening message to Hatcher, offering him two choices: leave peacefully or be forced out. Hatcher and his men burst into laughter at the threat, but knowing Beck's abilities, they begin preparing for an inevitable confrontation. As they prepare in tense silence, music suddenly plays, and it turns out to be Declan. At that moment, Declan arrives in a flashy manner and recites a poem for Hatcher's soldiers, drawing their attention. As Declan starts playing his music again, dozens of cattle stampede into the village, knocking down some of Hatcher's men. However, this is merely a distraction for the real attack. Beck begins methodically taking down his enemies one by one. Despite being up against dozens of armed soldiers, he fights using only his bare hands. Meanwhile, Travis is tasked with providing a distraction by firing a few shots. Eventually, he gets trapped inside a shop and has to face one of Hatcher's men in combat. Watching the unfolding chaos through CCTV, Hatcher begins to panic and orders his men to quickly evacuate the treasure. Meanwhile, on the ground, the situation intensifies. Travis finds himself trapped inside a bus, while enemies on the roof keep firing at him. Since Beck can't reach the enemies on the roof with his bare hands, he reluctantly decides to use a weapon for once. In less than 20 seconds, 8 enemies are dead, demonstrating why Beck avoids using weapons in the first place. Having eliminated those threats, Beck returns to his preferred method, fighting the remaining enemies with his bare hands. At the same time, Travis realizes that Hatcher's men are attempting to escape with the treasure. Without hesitation, he rams a car into their vehicle, trying to stop them. Meanwhile, Beck faces a new challenge as he is attacked by 3 whip-wielding fighters, who prove to be more skilled than ordinary soldiers. While Beck struggles to fend them off, Hatcher and his men take advantage of a blind spot to attempt to shoot Beck. Fortunately, Travis arrives just in time to assist Beck. Not long after, Hatcher admits defeat and promises to cease the attack. However, the villagers, enraged by Hatcher's tyranny, gather, ready to kill him. The only thing stopping them is Beck's presence. Beck gives Hatcher one last chance to apologize to the villagers and leave peacefully. But just as Hatcher is about to speak, someone shoots him, bringing an end to the oppression in Mariana's village. Shortly after, Beck feels a sense of gloom as he suspects that Travis has taken the treasure and fled during the chaos. However, his suspicions are put to rest when Travis reappears, handing the treasure over to Mariana. From the beginning, Travis hadn't been after the money but rather wanted to make a name for himself as a renowned archaeologist. After their long journey and overcoming countless obstacles, Beck successfully returns Travis to his hometown in Los Angeles. Billy, Travis's father, is overjoyed to have his son back and begins planning to marry him off to the daughter of another mafia boss. As promised, Billy rewards Beck with both the money and the ownership of his old restaurant. However, Beck stirs up trouble once more when, to celebrate the successful mission, he offers Billy some cause fruit, the same fruit that had poisoned him earlier in the Amazon. Beck's gesture is more than a prank. It's a way of giving Travis a second chance to escape his father's controlling grip. The film ends with Travis getting his chance at freedom. The moral of the story: never try to collect a debt at a football party, especially if the debtors are bigger and drunker than you. Otherwise, you might end up wrestling monkeys in the Amazon before you get your money.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.